You know when a man vacuums his workbench and then lines it with absorbent pads, some shit's about to go down. Yeah, man, it's a muggy one today. But I had to show you lifers this. I know my front door's open because I was expecting these. But that is how FedEx left two $400 carburetors. Not even on the porch, on the front step. And those big beautiful boxes you could see from the street, plain as day. If they would have just stuck it around a railing, or even closer to the wall, anything. I mean, they wonder why that people have porch pirates all the time. But, alright, drop this and go back to the real race boat life here. Oh my damn, look at these things! 1913 Edelbrock ABS 2s, baby! Wow! Yeah! And we even have a couple things in here, I believe. Oh yeah, they're heavy. Okay, lifers. Today's adventure begins with the Biesemeyer once again. But not in a good way. I really hate doing this because I should be putting this boat together and not taking it apart. But I've got questions that have been nagging at me for years, and this is the way to solve them. Well, it looks like I'm in the market for another new top. Yeah. Alright, lifers. I'm sure some of you are thinking, what the hell are you raping a Beezy for before you even got it started? You just had two carburetors show up on your porch. And now you're taking one off the Biesemeyer. What's going on? Well, I'm going to tell you what's going on. As I said, I'm solving an age-old question that I've had for almost 20 years. And it has to do with these guys. Alright, lifers. We definitely went out and raped the Biesemeyer for this answer, and we're going to get one. But first we have to say that this is totally for educational purposes only. I'm not recommending this, I'm not saying this. I personally want to know myself, and I'm taking you guys along for the journey. What you do with that information is totally upon you, not me. Not me. You don't want my stuff anyway. You'd have to work on it all the time, you'd be in the same boat you're in now. Nice. Today, after 20 some years, I've been over and over trying to figure out what the difference is between an Edelbrock marine carburetor and an Edelbrock street carburetor. Because when you look at the two of them, they don't look very different at all. And I mean, not at all. So, in the last couple weeks, especially, and probably ongoing, like I said, for the last 20 years, I have dug into every piece of information I can find online But I've really never sat down and just decided to take one apart and see what the difference is. And that's what we're going to do. Because I have looked up what they say the carburetor differences are, and pretty much all of them are almost cosmetic, as far as I know, until I take them apart and examine both of them. So we actually have a brand new carburetor that I do need to modify anyway. That's just right out of the box. I know it's an automotive carburetor. We also have, it's going in the race boat, in which case there's one whole side of the containment area that's open to the atmosphere, so I have no qualms about that. Sadly, the Biesemeyer actually has a marine carburetor on it. They just do not make anything above a 750 and Edelbrock. And what I've seen of Holley's, like I said, those things are more like a death trap to me anyway. I don't understand how Holley ever got certified with bowls hanging off both sides, metering jets and accelerator pumps, and I know I've done this 1,000 times. It just dumbfounds me. And yet Holley is certified, and the majority of Edelbrocks, which look almost identical to their street carburetors, are not. So we're going to find out. And maybe there is some magic dust in there that just makes it just so different that we can't do it. But as I said, I've done a lot of research and I have a lot of answers. I just don't have the final answer. And we're going to get it now. So here I have my Edelbrock 750 Marine Carburetor 1410. And it's a little filthy. Hold on a second. Okay, that's a little better. Alright, sorry about that. We just had to go get some of that fogging oil that we put the boat away with the last time off of the carburetor. And looks a little better now. Only took about 5 minutes. But it is truly a 1410. There you go. We'll get that nice in there. It definitely is an Edelbrock Marine carburetor. And today's comparison is a 1913 Edelbrock 800 AVS2. Alright, let's run down the differences between a Edelbrock Marine and an Edelbrock street carburetor. Both of our carburetors are electric choke. We did that because of convenience. It's just the way it is. Sorry about the manual choke, but there really isn't going to be any difference, except for you won't have a choke in a boat unless you have a really long cable. One thing the U.S. Coast Guard had spec'd for the Marine carburetor is a compression fitting at the fuel inlet. We are putting compression fittings in because of our fuel pump regulators, but it's mainly made for the use steel lines, compression steel line throughout the motor. They don't have one. They have, the simple one barb here. It works real well. I've never heard anybody have one blown off, but ours are going to be replaced anyway. So that's issue number one. I do find it odd that an inverted flare must be used on marine carburetors, and yet this whole thing came off the blue motors from Mercruiser, and I mean they were stock, right down to every bracket. I don't know what the deal was with that. The next difference is this. On the front of this carburetor, you're going to have one port for vacuum advance on your distributor. You got a PCV valve, and then you have another vacuum. I forget what it's for. Brake boosters. No, brake boosters on the back, but I forget exactly what it's for, but it's irrelevant. On a marine carburetor, they won't have any of these because they don't want you using a vacuum advanced distributor, because that's a automotive distributor and that is dangerous. Number two about these vacuum things that I've heard through second party now, so this won't get anybody in trouble, but a Edelbrock technician told them, because we use PCV valves. Some boats don't, and we're going to get to that in 1 second. Matter of fact, real soon. But a lot of people do use PCV valves in boats. And a gentleman called up the Edelbrock offices and asked the technician, why don't you drill these for PCV valves? And they said, quote unquote, that it will void their U.S. Coast Guard certification to be a marine carburetor if they do actually put a PCV valve in it, or a PCV valve inlet in it. So let's talk PCV valves for a second. I'm sure a lot of you have this kind of setup where you have a flame arrestor and a tube that just comes up and sits against the screen. And to be honest, those things are absolutely useless. And I mean absolutely useless. The only thing that they will ever catch is something that actually floats up the tube and comes up to the carburetor. And the reason I say that is look at all this screen. When you have this tube pushed up against it, where do you think the carburetor is going to draw the air from? The lowest pressure or the highest pressure? Exactly. So basically those things, the only thing they do is collect what comes out of the motor, as in blow by, or if you have something else crazy going on. The purpose of a PCV system is to actually draw air out of your motor from a clean air source, as an example of an oil breather cap. So it actually draws air through the breather cap, down through the motor, and back up through the other valve cover on the other side, and burns it off on the back side of the motor, like a PCV system does, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with that. The reasoning behind a PCV system is not only for emissions, but it's also mainly to draw moisture out of the engine. And in a marine environment, it's insane to think that you would have a system ready to go to draw moisture out of your motor, and the Coast Guard says, no, this will decertify your certification. So as you saw already, I'm sure, we do it on all ours. And in our recent research, we just realized that what we did was not necessarily bad, but there's a better way to actually hook them up. And the reason is that they want them put in the front, because that way there's always a constant velocity of air going down through that throat, and it automatically picks up all the stuff instead of having it go into the back where there isn't, and the front throat just by breathing has to actually pick it up from the back. So they prefer actually to be in the front. So we did discover that in our research, but everything else we're still yet to figure out. So that's our reasoning behind PCV and why we are going to use it even today. I understand it's not Coast Guard certified, but hey, they don't buy my motors. We also understand right off the bat that Edelbrock marine carburetors do have a coating on them. It's an anti-corrosive coating. They spray on a lot of their pieces, but believe it or not, they don't spray it on all of their pieces. We do have rust in a numerous amount of areas, and these are well maintained. As you just saw earlier when I started this video, I actually had to take it outside and use a can of carburetor cleaner on it to spray off all the fogging oil that we pack them in every winter, or every time we put the boat away for a long period. So yes, they do have an anti-corrosive coating on them. On the other hand, we have one without anti-corrosive coating, and it seemed to have held up just as well as this one. Could use a little polishing, but chance of me polishing a carburetor are about 0. So. And just 2 more observations that makes the difference between a marine and an auto is, one, you have a return fuel line, so in case your fuel pump explodes or something. Ours don't do that. We don't have return lines on ours. So this usually just gets capped off. And if worst case scenario you needed to put one in, you could always drill the side of the case someplace on one side or the other and put your own in. The second observation up here, while I got everything still put together, is the size of the flange for the flame arrestor. And we just measured it at, looks to be 0.250. And we come over here, and it's the same exact size. So far, pretty much everything is identical, except for the coating. And an Edelbrock automotive carburetor, they have a fast idle screw. On an Edelbrock marine carburetor, they actually have the hole for the screw, but no screw. Well, as you can see on the Edelbrock marine carburetor, this is where the screw actually would be, and you can see it's even threaded. And it would come up and hit this. On the automotive version, the screw comes up and hits the same thing. So to be Coast Guard compliant, you would remove the screw. That seems worth $150. Okay, it's time to take a look inside. I'm going to let you all know now, this is a perfectly working Edelbrock. I just bought $800 worth of carburetors. I'm not going to turn this guy into scrap metal to prove a point. We're going to take a look inside, we're going to see what we see, and then we'll make our own judgments from there. But for right now, I need to get these two apart. And it really pains me to take this brand new guy apart, but they're so easy and they're so friendly to work on. And I do definitely need to make one modification in here to make it marine certified. And we'll get to that when we get inside. So, fast forward. Okay, we have our marine body and our automotive body. They're side by side. If you'd like, you can freeze frame. I'd like somebody to tell me the difference. Now, of course, this is the new ABS system, so it doesn't have the weights. That is a difference. I will give you that. But the same exact body design is still being used. All the way down to, if you took this booster out, for this shaft to go through, the pits are still there, or the slots are still actually in the body to put this type of system back in here. Here's a better angle. With the ABS system, they don't use the weighted system, but they still use the body, because that's where the slot goes, where the bar goes across. And it's in all of them. And it's for this guy, because that's the same place where the slot goes, right across. So you literally could take this out and put it right in here. The real difference between this body and this body, besides the actual hole diameters themselves, because this is a 750 and this is 800, is the boosters. It's pretty odd that this one's kind of nice and red and that one's a little dark. That's a little odd for me.
Edelbrock, you got some answering to do. Being this is brand new out of the box, it probably should look like that, I'm thinking. But we'll probably see it on the other carburetor. But again, I've been looking at this for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And again, I see absolutely no difference between this carburetor and this carburetor. So they're using the same exact body on all of these carburetors. Again, the coating, yes, I'll give you that. They've coated it. The marine one, the shafts apparently look a little coated. Besides that, I can't tell the difference. If you're sucking seawater down through here and not gasoline, you've really got an issue anyway. As you can see, the body itself actually has bumps built into it for where the shafts go through. So there is no way. And I've also looked it up online. And if you want to reshaft these and put new bushings in, there's one kit for Edelbrock, Quadrajet, and Holley. They all have exactly the same kit. So my feeling is the shafts in this point are irrelevant. I mean, if you have enough gas that's running down here and makes it past the brass fittings and everything else and outside of your carburetor shouldn't be on that motor in the first place. So now we're into the air horn. And this is where the magic happens, really, as far as I'm concerned. We've pulled our gaskets and our floats off. Same exact ones on both carburetors, same floats. Actually, I'm a little disappointed, to be honest. One of the descriptions I read about the new ones is they had spring-loaded seats in them. And I think I'm going to find me a kit for the spring-loaded seats to put in these. Even though the Marine doesn't have it. Now, when it comes to the carburetor gaskets, when I was on Edelbrock's website, they offer a single gasket, and it looks like this. Well, some of the old styles, as you can see, have this little slot as opposed to this bigger slot. And besides that, they are identical. And they work identical too, because I have rebuilt Marine carburetors, and the kit came with this guy, not this one. So, with the difference in gaskets, there really isn't any difference in their function. On these carburetors, air horns, the Marine one has this tinish looking piece. It's not brass by a long shot, I'm sure. The automotive one actually has them cast into the body itself. That is the only difference. The functionality of the gasket is going to remain the same. Now, here's the two major changes that Edelbrock made between their automotive and their Marine carburetors. Inside the Marine carburetor air horn, right here, you're going to have a seal. On this carburetor, the automotive version, the boss is already there for the seal. This here is what the accelerator pump seal looks like. It's a little piece of rubber and a little spring-loaded push-in lock. And that solves that issue. They're about $8 a piece online. The second thing is this, and this is the #1 modifications that Edelbrock made to their fuel bowl venting system in the Marine carburetor as opposed to the automotive carburetor. If you look right about here, there's the choke shaft that goes across here. Right underneath of the choke shaft, there is a hole drilled for the vent. So right here we have on the new 800 the Edelbrock venting system. And as you can see some blue down there. It's just a clear pass straight through. On the Marine carburetor, as you can see, it's a clear pass straight through. The modification that they made was this. If you look right there, just below the choke shaft and the rear bowls, they drilled a hole. And that is your fuel bowl vent modification for the marine carburetor. I've got both horns sitting on the side here. It makes it a little easier to see. See that hole? It's right below the choke shaft. That hole right there is non-existent. So there's your differences between your Edelbrock Marine and your Edelbrock Automotive. What you do with that information is your choice. It's a hot one today. Oh, edit. Pick up some trash. Piece of fiberglass. Where the hell did that come from? Alright, there we go. Carburetor sitting on your porch. Farts. Pause! Alright. Again. Carb cleaner on it and get some of that stable what is it? Oh, okay. So let's talk PCV valves for a second. My understanding, I got a flashing light, damn it. Alright, let's do this. Now, let's ditch this first. You use an air cleaner or an air breather. The reason is the fact that an Edelbrock Auto made to these carburetors. Pause for a second there. Oh no, I just dropped one. I gotta pause. Pause, we just dropped one. Whew, that was a close one. I already lost an accelerator pump rod. As opposed to... God, I need some beer or something. This here, on an Edelbrock Marine carburetor, I have to do that again.